The immediate task is to convert transactions into trusted records into finance and market access, and increase productivity into jobs, exports, and a sustainable revenue base.
No economy in the world has experienced transformation, competitiveness, and inclusive growth without vibrant micro, small, and medium enterprises and startups. They enhance the shift from resource dependence to innovation, skills, and productivity. For Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, it has become imperative to prioritize MSMEs, which informed the 6th edition of the annual MSMEs and Startups Economic Summit in Lagos, with the theme Digitizing MSMEs for Unlocking Nigeria's Non-Oil Revenue and Economic Growth. Given the opening remarks, Mr. Jude Undu, founder of the Africa Global Economic Forum and convener of the summit, acknowledged that technology and digitization are now becoming increasingly critical to catalyzing the growth of MSMEs.
Past events, we've highlighted different issues that were perceived that are constraining MSMEs' growth and productivity. But one thing stood out for us, and that is the place of technology and digitization. Again, if you put it within the context of the policy at the highest level, the federal government, about growing the economy to become a $1 trillion economy, and again within the context of the non-oil sector of the economy, which for the first time, it's outpacing the oil sector.
Delivering the keynote address at the event, Mr. Olufemi Awuyemi, MNI, chairman of ProShare, represented by the Director of Research, ProShare, stressed that digitization can provide the connecting infrastructure for MSMEs when it is designed around enterprise value rather than technology adoption alone.
Digitalization must therefore improve the daily economics of business. It should help firms manage stock, compare input prices, reduce payment friction, document sales, reach customers beyond their immediate location, and participate in structured procurement. The Lagos State Industrial Policy 2025 to 2030 provides a useful framework around clusters, corridors, and delivery institutions. Its value for MSMEs will depend on whether those structures produce finance pipelines, shared infrastructure, reliable market links, and measurable enterprise outcomes. For us at ProShare, we currently are interested in what we call an execution compact. The institutions represented at this summit can organize their work around 5 linked commitments. Government should establish a current enterprise baseline and publish outcome data for every major MSME intervention. Financial institutions should use permissioned cash flow and supply chain data to provide products matched to business cycles. Technology providers should make enterprise data portable, secure, and interoperable. Each commitment requires safeguards. Business owners must understand what information is collected and how it will be used. Cybersecurity and fraud controls must keep pace with adoption. Digital channels must accommodate low bandwidth users and businesses outside major cities. Competition rules must prevent platforms from convening data advantage into permanent commercial dependency. Dispute resolution must be accessible because a digital record is valuable only where contracts and claims can be enforced. The scorecard for the next summit should be specific. It should report the number of active enterprises, verified the share maintaining usable digital records, the value and procurement won, jobs retained and created, productivity gains, export participation, survival rates. How many businesses have survived since the adjustment in 2023, mid-year 2023? Those are the kind of data we need. Those are the kind of things we need to understand. Why did they survive? Those that survived, why did they survive? Those that failed, why did they fail? So there's a whole pool of data that we still need within the ecosystem. Recent survey evidence suggests that Nigerian entrepreneurs remain willing to invest in the future. A July 2026 SME confidence study reported that 81% were confident about the next 12 months as important to growth. Institutions must now meet that confidence with infrastructure, capital market access, and public accountability. Finally, Nigeria does not lack enterprise activity. It lacks a sufficiently connected system to identify viable firms, understand their operating records, finance their productive needs, and integrate them into larger markets. Digitalisation can provide that connecting infrastructure when it is designed around enterprise value rather than technology adoption alone. The immediate task is to convert transactions into trusted records into finance and market access, and increase productivity into jobs, exports, and a sustainable revenue base. That sequence protects the enterprise while advancing the national interest. It also gives the summit a practical base for measuring progress when we meet again. I wish us a productive summit and thank you for your attention. Olufemi Aoyemi, MNI.
The Chief Technology Officer and Chief Operating Officer of OPE, Mr. Dotun Adekunle, in his remarks, made a strong case for shifting from digitizing payments to digitizing businesses to scale MSME growth and competitiveness.
In 1992, before most of this technology that we celebrate today ever existed, commercial bank lending to small enterprises was over 27% of the total lending. What happened? From 27% to 1%. The World Bank approving a $500 million MSME facility last December put it this way: fewer than 1 in 20 Nigerian MSMEs has access to bank credits. And in terms of productivity, the World Bank's Nigeria Development Update found that in the decade to 2023, value added across the economy grew more slowly than the number of workers. In other words, as the workforce kept on growing, the productivity was not growing at the same pace. That's the reality that we face today. So, holding those two columns together, transaction value is growing vertical, account ownership is growing vertical, but credit access 1% and productivity falling. So let me state the thesis of this address in one sentence. We have digitized the transaction, we have not digitized the business. If this summit is serious about non-oil growth, and I take that it is, because it is in the title, then digitalization must reach the part of the economy that produce tradable outputs, agriculture, light manufacturing, processing, tradable services, which is actually one bright spot for Nigeria with the population of young people that we have. And we should be honest about which of those payment industry currently serves well. We serve we serve the urban retail trader superbly. We serve the small older farmer poorly because their working capital cycle is 90 days and our instruments assume that they will have big money at the end of 1 month. Efficient distribution of imported goods will not diversify this economy away from oil. It will make our import dependence more efficient. That is what it is doing today. Let me close with 3 obligations: one for the regulator, one for the industry, and one for all of us. To the regulator, make visibility reciprocal. For a great many merchants, the honest calculation today is that going digital makes you traceable and taxable and offers you very little in return. When that is the arithmetic, invisibility is not ignorance, it's a rational business strategy. Nobody formalizes so that I can become part of the task queue. The direction of the Nigerian Tax Act is effective, so we are happy that the new Tax Act has worked in the right direction. I hope that we'll continue to look at that. I would gently observe that the electronic money transfer levy raised nearly 150 billion naira in the first half of last year, up more than 50% year on year. And that we levy the electronic transfer while its cash equivalent goes untouched. And we are wondering why there is still cash in the economy. So the banks, fintechs, and payment companies stop competing on ordering of merchant activity and start competing on what we do with it.
It featured panel sessions that discussed digitizing MSME finance and financing MSMEs for non-oil export growth. The convener of the summit and some of the speakers provided further insight into the event's theme and the prospects for scaling MSME growth through digitization in Nigeria.
For me, it's been a wonderful experience bringing this together. The sixth edition of the annual MSME and Startup Economic Summit. I'm particularly excited about the level of contributions from all the speakers and the panelists, both for the morning session and the afternoon session. And again, because of the critical importance of the theme of the event, which is on digitization, with respect to unlocking the capacity of MSMEs with regards to the non-oil sector. So I think by and large, it's been a very good, it's been a very good event, and we're happy that ProShare, could be part of this. We're happy that ProShare was a key partner in bringing this to life, and looking forward, we expect something far better for subsequent events for next year. We're hoping that this will be on a bigger scale, and a much more broader engagement within the ecosystem of the MSME sector. So by and large, I think it's been a very good one. Yeah.
For MSMEs to really advance, they need to build three things. One is their transaction history. That means they must accept digital payments in terms of, so that we can have a record of their financial collections and how expenses are being recorded. That is very critical for them to access credit. When they begin to access credit, and credit is what leads to growth. Without credit, you're not able to scale the business. When you begin to access credit, it's now important that you maintain a credit history. You repay your loans. One thing that is necessary for credit management in Nigeria is a national credit registry, so that each time you make a repayment, it records against that database. And each time you default, it records against that database. And there is a national credit score that is accessible for all fintechs and banks everywhere to see that you're moving in the right direction. Once that is established, the next thing that you now need to build on top of that credit history, or before that actually, is your business history. For credit to really be really acceptable, you need more, or really accessible, you need more than just a record of transactions. You need a record of the business. What is your profit margin? What is your cash flow like? What's your inventory like? All those financial data becomes necessary. So with those three things working together, we see that MSMEs will begin to grow and begin to scale and become large enterprises as well.
The agent has to move beyond just doing cash in, cash out transaction. The agent must be seen to provide MSMEs with that digital financial footprint, transaction, right? Transaction traction, and then access to finance, which is critical in the growth of MSMEs. And that's actually the role that SANEF does. So SANEF sits smack in the middle to enable that platform by collaborating with every critical stakeholder. And that has shown over the years in our various activities, all our activities, be it when we started and we're giving the 500,000 target and we met 561,000, to even today where we have over 2 million agents. We have continued to enable the ecosystem by collaborating with the critical ecosystem stakeholders to bring in more agents into this ecosystem space, to enable products and services at the various agent locations, to ensure that there's account opening at the agent locations. No, don't forget, these accounts are not owned by anybody but the banks, the financial service providers. So ensure that those accounts create transaction at the various agent locations, and that's where the MSMEs have to also play to bring in their digital footprints and increase their business and create access to finance.
A major takeaway from the 6th Annual MSME and Startup Economic Summit is the need for a national digital business identity initiative for businesses across the country.